talk about that. And also there's one other thing.
Okay.
Item number 6 too.
Just keep it. Okay.
Did you want to start with item number 6, Roger?
Yeah, we all got the same one.
Sure.
I thought I was going to come back over.
Item number 6 is the cost recovery ordinance.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Some of us are saying.
So we're going with 6 first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we'll go to 22.
All right, very good. Good evening, everyone. As you know, my name is David Greco, Assistant Corporation Counsel and Prosecuting Attorney for the city. I was asked to look at all ordinances and to draft with Chief Reynolds a cost recovery for emergency responses ordinance. The purpose of which is so the city has a mechanism through the ordinance to recover costs for various emergency responses where somebody is deemed responsible for those responses. Right now, we have some ordinances with regard to hazardous spills. We have some ordinances with regard to cost recovery for drunk driving. This is something that many municipalities are doing, which is a more broad and comprehensive cost recovery ordinance for those found responsible, either by criminal conduct or by negligence. And if you've had a chance to review the memo that I provided to the mayor, and also the ordinance, again, the purpose and intent is to recover some of the costs that we are able to recover. Now, in discussions with Chief Reynolds, you know, we had a lot of discussions about what are we seeking to do here, who are we seeking to recover from, are we seeking to recover all costs of responses, or are we just seeking to recover from those responsible for criminal conduct, negligence, are we looking to go after insurance companies, all of those things. Hopefully, in many of these instances where we have a big issue with regard to a fire call or an accident, there will be insurance. This helps us in being able to recover that.
So is this intended to take the place of everything else that's on the books or work in concert with it? I had sent Chief an email, we trade emails and never got to him, so I did have a few questions. I just want to make sure that what we have and what's different is all consistent, moving us in the right direction.
It's working with, there is some overlap between the two. With regard to the cost recovery for the drunk driving, that is an ordinance that is modeled after a state statute. So that's a kind of a copy and paste job, which is, as you know, some of the things that we do as a municipality. With regard to the hazardous and toxic waste, you know, spills, which I reference in here, that one's a bit more comprehensive. Well, that one is a longer ordinance with respect to defining those things. This one is a bit more comprehensive, even though it only touches on it a little bit. Right now, in looking at it, you bring up a good point. I wanted to look to see, should we, in enacting this, if the council decides to do that, should we repeal those? And based upon my review, I don't think that we do. When I looked at other municipalities, we are mirroring what they have done. Those other ordinances are still on the books in other municipalities. I think they only enhance and work together with those things. I don't see really, in short, there's no conflict.
Let me give you one example, and maybe I'm off base. This new proposal talks about the city treasurer shall serve an invoice. We've got a contract with Acumet. Are we talking about two different types of collections or two different types of cost recovery? Because we're also going to try and collect directly from insurance companies, which we may use a third party to collect. Are we singing different things in different documents, or are we collecting different fees and different means?
No, I think, I'm not sure specifically what you're referencing, but we would be referring to all of the same things, and they are all part of, if we're using a third party to collect the fees, the basis upon which would be this ordinance, whether it goes to an insurance carrier or whatever contract that we have. So the ordinance enables the city to do it. The contracts provide a mechanism for that, if that in fact is a situation that exists.
But with that contract, I don't know that our treasurer would be involved in that collection process, but this seems to infer that the way the process will be initiated is via the city treasurer.
Can we like change that to say city treasurer or designee or something?
Or just the city.
Or the city.
Or the city.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, that would solve the
And
problem.
there's also, you know, the second part of that, this is section 2.223, gives a person an appeal process, which I don't know if that's true through Acumen and through the invoices that are going to go out that we're going to try and collect for those services. So again, I just want to make sure that we're not depending on who initiates an invoice, who's going to collect, and what the person in receipt of that invoice is supposed to do with it.
Well, I think our larger intention is only going to be to, primarily bill insurance companies. But in cases of criminal wrongdoing or gross negligence, it does give us the opportunity to, because in those instances, quite often the insurance is not going to pay, because there's a clause in the contracts that indicate a crime, you kind of waive your right to insurance. But that will give us, a foothold, if you will, to kind of, if we deem that to be a viable option, to pursue that.
I think to the councilman's question, I think it specifically says here, the city treasurer shall serve an invoice for cost by first-class mail or personal service to the person or persons determined, blah, blah, blah. So is that saying that based on this, the city treasurer is going to deliver that invoice, or does that give us the ability to allow that process to go through the third-party billing? Because I think it's just striking that out or something.
What we can do is, if I'm provided with a copy of the contract, we can take a look at it and see what it is and work it out. It's not going to be an issue. Again, we can change city to, or treasurer to city, and let me just make sure to look at that contract and see that we're not in conflict with that, because we can work with both.
Okay.
Again, the purpose of the ordinance is to provide the basis for the right for it. How we specifically do it, I clearly made some judgment calls as I'm preparing
Which
it.
is why we're talking.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So has there been dialogue with Acumen to see what we can put in the ordinance? Like, we're kind of talking about what we can charge for as well, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, they might have I think we need to be in compliance with them as well.
No, there's really no guide for cost recovery. It's up to the governing body to
Okay.
determine its own set of parameters.
Okay.
So there is no rule book.
And to answer your question, Councilman, what I did was I looked at the law and looked at what we are able to do in general, which will trump, what a contract can do. Now, a contract will tell us what we can and can't do, but I based this ordinance on what is possible for us to do.
Okay.
And like I said, we can look at the contract and make sure
Well,
that
I remember getting an email saying that, there were certain things we can't go after as far as, compensation that the courts ruled or something like that, and I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. If we are able to collect, everybody knows what we're able to collect, including the company that we got doing the work for us, which I'm sure they do.
Right, and in connection with that, in the broad scheme of things, there isn't a whole lot of litigation or case law. In fact, there's virtually none to look at in what a city or municipality's powers are to collect things like this. In the Charter Township Act, which doesn't apply to this city, it provides that townships can recover fees for fire and police services, and the statute is written in a way where it refers to municipalities, then it looks like then it refers to townships. And when any lawyer reads that, you look at it and say, well, I think this applies to everybody and not just townships, but it is within the Township Act. So once I did that, I started looking everywhere on, where else can we get this? And what we're basing this ordinance on would be the general police power that we have under the Home Rule City Act. But I haven't found any cases that indicate that we cannot do this or do this as broadly as I have written, okay? And there's only one case out there in the Michigan Court of Appeals which ruled that the Environmental Protection Act and the Department of Natural Resources Act applied with respect to certain toxic waste, and I put that in paragraph 2-22-6 to indicate there that any conflict with the state statute, it would rule. This way it doesn't invalidate our ordinance and doesn't really, affect the enforceability of it at all.
The other thing I was thinking about, Dan, was I haven't yet given up on our potential to collect for ALS, BLS, first responder type services. So I know it's still a long shot, and I know it may not happen, but if it does happen, I want to make sure that our policies and procedures and ordinances cover that. So when we start invoicing, if we start invoicing, that we're not going to be in violation of something that we previously agreed to.
Sure. Well, I think I do have the Act 33, 51, which is the statute that he had referenced. Townships. Now, his interpretation is maybe this works for a city as well, but it does state specifically emergency ambulance or inhalator service. That's kind of a dated term, but it's the crux of EMS response. So there is a statute that says that.
Okay.
And again, it is encompassed within the Charter Township Act, but if you look at the language, if I was reading it and I didn't see that it was in the Township Act, I would think that it would apply to all municipalities because of the language in it and differentiating between municipalities and the township as the act applies. But that being said, that wasn't really what I was basing our ability to do this on, just generally our police power and enforcement under the Home Rule City Act. And this statute is consistent with what municipalities are doing throughout the state.